For the very first time in my life, I perceived that the portals at Shasta were open and that the Lemurian Presence was strong. I gasped, and it took me a few minutes to relay the information to Larry, as the strong Lemurian energy in the mountain rendered me speechless. I was like, what?
I remember you were like, you aren't going to believe it.
Yeah.
Welcome
To another episode
of Driving to the Red.
with your favorite hosts,
The captain,
the captain,
myself, Larry,
and Inelia.
the admiral.
The Admiral.
Yes.
Woo! I win.
Oh my. We were captain and admiraling it this last week on a trip to a wedding on Lake Tahoe.
In California. Yay!
Yes.
California. Yay. It was a little bit difficult, actually, because California is rather hot. And I don't do that well in the heat. So, but we did pretty good,
Yep.
in my opinion.
Yep, I think in the mid 70s, that was pretty tolerable.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was time to go,
It
the
started
day
getting
we
really
were
hot.
leaving, it got to 100. So we were like, out of there.
Yes.
We're not good in hundreds.
Not very much, no. And I noticed that elevation is not so good for the captain.
For the what I wear?
The elevation.
Oh, the elevation, right.
Which is strange because you go skiing, so I couldn't understand how come when we went to the elevation part and the mountains there, you went, woo.
Well, that was 9,000 feet. And when I go skiing, it's more like 3 or 4.
I think it was 7,000.
It was 8,500. I got dizzy and out of it.
You did a little bit, yes. Yeah.
Oh, my brain turned to mush, too. I was trying to think of things to say.
Yeah.
I didn't have nothing.
No.
Like, not nothing.
But there was something that happened on the way there that was pretty interesting.
And the way back.
And on the way back, yes.
And that's the topic of this week's newsletter,
Mm-hmm.
which
It's
you
called,
can get at Substack, right?
yes, inelia.substack.com. And it's called The Lemurian Portal in Shasta is open again.
Lemurian Portals. No! Okay.
You're not that fond of them?
Well, I haven't had the most pleasant, greatest experiences.
With Lemurian Portals?
Yeah.
You want to,
They're just a
Sure.
source of frustration for me so far.
yeah?
Yeah.
How come?
Well, because the last time I was at one, Montserrat,
In Spain?
in Spain, they had to give me a baby to stop me from wanting to beat everybody up. And I don't even want to beat anybody up anyway.
You're not a beats people up
I'm
type
not a
of person.
beat up people type of person, but
No, not at all.
there was a problem.
What happened?
Well, short story, long story short,
Yes,
You
long
know.
story short, yeah.
they wanted to separate us, and my clear instructions were not to be separated. So
Yes.
I said, no, I'm not going to be separated, and anybody who tries to separate me is going to get a knuckle sandwich.
Knuckles.
And Lemurians aren't too
before.
much about fighting, I guess.
No.
So they went and found you and said, hey, what do we do? What do we do? And you told them to give me a baby because I wasn't going to give anybody knuckle sandwiches if I'm holding a baby.
Yes, exactly.
It worked.
It did work, yes. It was quite funny. Hey, baby, come on. She's on top of the stairs. She wants us to get out of here.
She'll be here in a minute. Give
Yeah.
her time. So that was my Montserrat. I mean, in a nutshell. Very,
In a
very
nutshell.
short version of a very, very much longer
Yes.
story. And you can find
Our longer stories. we
expansions
did
of that
talk
longer
about
story
that,
in our blogs and our
yeah. And on our
links.
classes as well.
right.
We
because
have
we
one
have several
called,
classes.
yeah, we have a couple of articles called The Lemurian Connection, Lemurian Memories, which I think is where we talked about that
I
actually.
think so. Yeah.
And the Lemurian Connection class and your invitation to Lemuria, that one, we do talk about it quite a bit in the invitation to Lemuria.
Right. So if you're like interested,
You can find the links to the classes on the article, which is at inelia.substack.com.
Very easy. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. How about the article, honey? Give it a read.
Okay, and we can also ask Ilia to put the links in the show notes,
All right.
which will be even easier. Okay, since my first visit to Shasta in 2006, I had the opportunity to visit the mountain, and I have driven past it a dozen times, maybe even over 100 times. But although I learned about Lemurians in that first visit, I have not been able to find or even feel one of their portals there in Shasta.
Which is strange.
I found them and met with them at a different location in the world, but not Shasta. Shasta was closed.
I find that strange because, I mean, again, same as you, the first time I even heard of Lemurians was at Shasta. There's like all kinds of Shasta people who are like
Lemurian
Portal
oriented.
oriented and Lemuria, everything, this and that and the other. And I even went there on a Qigong group to go hang out in Lemuria with the Lemurians on 2012.
Yeah, did you get there?
No, we got sidetracked, I think, on a demonic possession ritual instead. You just never know what you're going to run into. So there was no open portal to Lemuria there at the time.
You definitely had a very interesting journey in your expansion of awareness, huh?
Right. The next trip to Lemuria through Mount Shasta, it wasn't any better. So Shasta and Lemuria and we haven't really had like a great relationship there. This doesn't. My experience of what you just said is, that portal was closed, man. It was hijacked by other people doing other things and calling it that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think they ever went near that one of the portals in Shasta, because there's several.
Yeah,
and in the hills around it too.
I think their
name was hijacked.
The exists and the trip there. It just seems like it got hijacked some way. Either way, my literal experience was it didn't go there.
Yeah.
No.
So Shasta was closed.
It was closed
until June 2024.
That's interesting, since we were there in June 2024.
Larry and I drove to California for our family wedding in mid-June, and as we got close to Mount Shasta, two things happened.
I remember I was driving.
The first thing was that from the Oregon side of the mountain, the moment the mountain appeared in the distance, it looked huge.
Yeah.
We both noticed the phenomenon because we have driven past it dozens of times before. We always commented on how little the mountain looked.
I'm always amazed when we come up on Shasta, because sometimes it's one mountain, sometimes it's two mountains, sometimes it's a short one, sometimes it's a tall one, sometimes it's a skinny one, sometimes it's snowy, sometimes it's dirty, sometimes it always has a different face to me. And this time down for me, it was like 5 different kinds of mountain. Yeah. Even though it was the same mountain and we're just going around it.
Yeah.
It was 5 or 6 different mountains.
Yeah. All right, so this time it was huge, taking most of the horizon in its majesty. We became silent as Larry drove.
Yeah.
And we listened to an ebook. I looked at the mountain and felt its presence and energy. What was different since this time, I wondered? For the very first time in my life, I perceived that the portals at Shasta were open and that the Lemurian Presence was strong. I gasped, and it took me a few minutes to relay the information to Larry, as the strong Lemurian energy in the mountain rendered me speechless. I was like, what?
I remember you were like, you aren't going to believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you tell me a lot of things I'm not going to believe, and then I find out they're true. So,
yes.
This one was like, oh, yeah.
Okay, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah, when you told me, I was like, okay, I'm going through Shasta.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's open, let's go look.
Yes. But what was interesting is that, well, I think we talk about it later in the article, but it was interesting in that it felt like we were open, like we're open, that was the energy, and the portals are all open, but it wasn't time for you and me, Larry and Inelia, to visit with them. That's the energy I got. Anyways, for the full timeline with and thoughts about Lemurians, you can read my articles, The Lemurian Connection and Lemurian Memories, and the classes, Lemurian Connection and Your Invitation to Lemuria. And actually, those classes have exercises where you can connect with Lemurians directly.
Yep.
I cannot fully express the difference in the mountain between all the previous times we visited it or drove past it and that our last trip passed in June 2024, but it's huge. When we were in Montserrat in Spain 2014, we visited the portals to Lemuria there and even managed to go through one of them. We spent time with the Lemurians at a physical level, then returned. When we arrived at Montserrat, the portals were palatable, findable.
I even took a picture of one.
And the Lemurians were present both in a telepathic level and physical level.
Mm-hmm.
We even saw Lemurians walking around the area, going up and down the mountain and stuff. That was really interesting to me. But you can tell they were different.
That Montserrat's hill.
They were
hosted
open
by a giant monastery and a whole bunch of different things going on there.
They put the monastery on top of the where the portal was, the main one was. They put a smack on it.
Right, smack. Then that's big.
And then they built the monastery all around it. Pretty huge, right? But the portal then moved up the mountain.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I remember we didn't go in the portal at the monastery.
No, we had to leave the monastery, go up the mountain, and we found one of their portals there. There were more than one also.
Hidden in plain sight.
Mm-hmm. We got to the easiest one to get to.
Thank God, because it was quite a mountain.
The group I was with, including Larry, had their memories wiped clean. The only evidence for the visit were an unexplainable missing time, extreme hunger, and feeling of wellness. With Shasta, however, it was never like that. All I found there were people who would talk about Lemurians, their visits to that place, or carried Lemurian crystals, and would give them to me.
I remember that.
That was quite interesting, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I thought I had it with me. Let me see. I had it in my hand to show everybody the crystal, but I don't have it now. That Lemurian crystal is very private. I can't share it unless
want to show itself.
If it doesn't want to be shared, it doesn't get shared. It's very nice little crystal. And the only time anything odd happened near the mountain was in 2015 or 16 when I was driving past it and a loud sound made it into my car as I drove past it. I stopped the car by a small diner and got out. The sound was even louder and it reminded me of a song of whales. I went into the diner and asked the owner what that sound was. I imagined that perhaps it was a machine or some sort of other explainable thing. What sound, she asked. I tried to describe the sound to her. She came out of the diner with me and listened carefully. I don't know what that is. I've never heard anything like it before, she said. We joked about it being aliens or Lemurians, then she went back inside and I got back into my car and carried on driving. I was able to hear the sound for several miles before it was gone.
Was it like the trumpets? That one that every now and then what was it, in 2011 or so, they kept on having this sounds of the trumpets, of the angel trumpets or the angel horns or whatever,
No, the closest I can get to is like whale sounds.
Okay.
But it was like really loud and deep. I can't really do it with my voice because, I don't have a deep voice.
Okay.
But yeah, it was I can't
so
really do
strange.
it. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to June 2024.
All right.
What do we do? Asked through the strong connection to the Lemurians in the mountain. Don't stop. You won't find a portal this time, was the answer. It's not for you. It's not ready. The last bit of information I was not able to fully translate. Was it not for me and Larry that the portals opened? Was it the wrong time? Were we not ready for full contact? We were in a hurry as we had a wedding to get to, and maybe that was it. As we're there on the way back, we may visit. And I got the same feeling of not yet.
It's funny too, because I did drive through town.
Yeah. Now I say in the mountain, but the Lemurians are not physically inside the mountain. There are portals on and around the mountain, but they don't lead inside the mass of rock which we know as Mount Shasta.
Yeah. That's one of the things that most of them told me when I was there, is there's a place on it and there's a hole and then you go inside the mountain.
No, that's not true.
So, okay, well, good to know. I wish I'd have known, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Larry drove us into the town of Shasta and we slowly made our way through it on our way south.
Yeah, and the town of Shasta isn't, Mount Shasta, but it's the human gathering who, they're linked to Shasta. That's their place, right?
Yeah.
And the first few times I've been through it and this last time through it, it's changed quite a lot. I guess all places change, but this one's, it moved from, in my impression, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was more or less woo oriented, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were crystal stores everywhere, you know, essential oils,
Mm-hmm.
psychic readings, and Lemurian stores, things like that. You know, it was like
This time or the previous
last
times?
times.
Last time.
And this time, you know, the crystal store is now a CVS pharmacy store, and a tiny one at that. I was like, I don't know if CVS would have such a small pharmacy. It's like gas station turned into crystal store turned into CVS. They were like, the woo was absent. Yeah, so that's kind of strange, turning our
Crystal stores
crystal
to CVS.
stores into CVS's, which is pharmacy.
It's a pharmacy, yes.
Pharmacy / drugstore.
Mm-hmm.
Just felt a little bit unwooed.
And wooed.
Unwooed. I preferred the woo version myself.
Mm. To me, the town felt extremely different to how it used to be. It felt scruffy, spent, and tired. I could see that at the physical level, the town was none of those things. It's a nice town. I closed my eyes and felt beyond it. I was able to see that what I was seeing was the contrast between a Lemurian society and our society. I didn't have much to do with the town at all. For me, it was evidence that my first scene of the portals being open were correct. The energetic contrast was now palpable. We had to continue on our way south, so we didn't stop. The next few days were a flurry of activity around the wedding, so we didn't pay much attention to the experience or scene until we were on our way back and saw the mountain again. On our way back, we were not in a time crunch, and we could have stopped if we wanted to.
Yeah, you actually even said we had a whole extra day if you wanted.
Yeah, I felt excited. I excitedly felt into the Lemurian energy at the mountain again, wondering if it was now ready to have a visit from us. No, came the answer.
Strangely enough, I did it the same thing, but I did it with Gaia instead of the Lemurians. I just asked Gaia, you know, and she said 95 degrees.
That was a heat.
Yeah, it's like, oh, no, not now.
Not now.
You're not you're not going to be camping no Shasta Mountain, no 95 degrees.
Yes.
And right away after we left and got up into Oregon a little bit, it went down to, we were up there, it was 60.
Wow. On our way back, we were not in... What was all that noise?
That sounded dramatic.
It did sound dramatic.
And the cluckers are clucking over here. They're like, what was that? What was that?
I think it's called a PB.
Beavers chasing chickens.
Anyways.
Back to Lemuria.
Back to Lemuria. Yes. We were definitely disappointed, but we didn't push it. We drove past it and didn't look back.
And I have learned my lesson.
When we get guidance. Yeah. When we push through it and do it anyways.
Now's not the time. Well, I'm going to anyway. This isn't it. Oh, I think it might be. No, this is not the one. Well, what if we just try
whatever.
Anyway? Let's just see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yes, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Well, no was no, and it wasn't time. And I could feel it also through the message is just the weather. Clear. 90 plus degrees. It's not time.
Yeah. What does it mean? How come they're open again, I wondered. I knew they had been open in the past because I had met people who told me of their trips there and back again. And I knew it had been closed from at least 2006 until now. So what was the deal?
Oh, well, some of the old stories that are more accurate.
Maybe it means the split is complete and we all see now are the shadows of the old paradigm, I suggested to Larry.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I didn't really get it at that time, and a little bit more now. But at the time, it felt like
what's the connection?
The description you just gave, which was that the difference between the Lemuria open and the existing experience in Lake Shasta was dramatically different.
Yeah,
and you've always explained, or you have expressed that Lemuria exists in the paradigm that we're basically switching to. Something like it in the sense of it's not light dark.
Right, yes.
Not necessarily the same structure, but light instead of light dark.
Yes. They never played dark games.
They didn't split into
They
a
don't
light dark
torture
experience.
people, go to war, kill, maim,
They still have
trample over other
hierarchies,
people,
and they still
destroy
have
things. And they don't do that. The hierarchy is responsibility based.
right.
Yeah, it's not power over others, it's power over self.
But I do understand when I look at it now with you a little bit, what it means, what the implication is. That with the portal open, that means they're open to connecting, and they couldn't before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Couldn't or wouldn't, either one,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. I remember that in the past, when I asked them why they wouldn't come over to my place for a cup of tea, or show me where the portals were at Shasta so I could visit with them, they expressed the information that I interpreted as their portals in the USA being under siege, that it was kind of dangerous to get close to them or even have them open. Are they no longer under siege? It appears they're not. And so what has changed? I don't actually have the answers. But I have suggestions. The answers, I hope, come with further discussion and looking at the phenomenon together. Our first discussion will be at our Driving to the Rest podcast, and on the second hour of the podcast, we will deep dive uncensored with our panelists. But so, let's discuss it a little bit further, honey.
Yeah, I kind of have that feeling that the split the split is happening. Yeah, we're in the splitting.
Yes.
And the splitting has happened to a degree where the realities are far enough apart. It could be that the portals open into this split version.
Yes. The light
light
of the split.
side of the split. It could be that it's open at that level. It's not open at the other level, and that's what's changed, is that the splits progress to the point. The chickens think so.
I think
they're in total agreement.
We need to deal with that puppy again.
I don't think so. She's fine.
Okay.
I think the chickens were just agreeing.
The splits
happened progressing at a rate. Because remember, you had a looking forward at 2024. Here are the things that we might see as the split is progressing.
Mm-hmm.
Right here are the plans, and et cetera, et cetera. And we have seen those plunk, 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 plunk right into place, just as you saw.
Yes.
And so that means the split's progressing.
Yes.
And so now having the portal opening, and I'm assuming, because why not? Why wouldn't it be? But that we're kind of in, we're totally in light paradigm side of split. We're not like, I don't know, I might like to torture some people to the future life or something. So maybe I won't. No, we're totally on the
or be tortured
side. Oh yeah, or be tortured, or save some people from being tortured.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
Or give up my life so that others won't be tortured.
Yeah, that's the martyr energy.
I mean,
all of those things.
I think we're done with all of those.
Yeah, we're done with those energies for sure.
So it stands to reason logically that the portal could be opened into this side of the split. That stands to reason. I like that. I like that thought.
Yeah, that's how it feels. And part of the evidence for me on that kind of description of what's going on was that when I was looking at the town of Shasta, the human town of Shasta, and I have been there before, obviously, because I did visit quite a few times, or drove past it, or through it also. The difference was that it felt almost like really scruffy. I can't describe it. It's like it wasn't actually physically scruffy, but it felt
cleaner
scruffy
than before. Even if I had to say anything, it was less dirty. It was more maintained. It was more like scrubbed.
Yeah, but it felt less. Yeah, one of the things that I noticed the last time we went through or drove through Shasta was that there was a lot of homeless people on the streets. And this time there weren't any. And I remember mentioning that, I wonder where all the homeless people went, because the last time we went through, there was a lot of homeless people on the side of the road with their little cardboard things,
And sitting in the doors.
And doors, and the little
alcove.
Camping kind of setups. Like you see on the edge of the highway in Seattle, for example, or Portland.
Yep.
As you go through the highway, through the city and the highway, you can see on the sides of the road all these homeless camps. So there was that last time, and this time there was none of that. But it still felt kind of like that. I don't know, at an energetic level, I guess, or perception level. And then when I went a little bit deeper into that energy or feeling, I could see I think I was seeing the contrast between the energy that is lived in Lemuria as opposed to the energy we have here. I remember one of the things that happened after we came back from the Lemurian area in Montserrat was the feeling that food was dead.
Right.
On our side.
We experienced some dead food on the trip too.
And I couldn't eat it. I couldn't
Lemurian
eat food.
Or the
no.
food?
The dead food, when we came back, I couldn't eat it. I mean, that's happened also when, the split and the different timeline thing happened with me. And I came here and it's like, where's all the food? There's no food here. It was very similar, right? But when in Shasta, I remember, like for days, it's like, I can't eat this. This isn't food. It's all dead. And to me, that brings us, and the water also, but to me, that brings us really nicely into the artesian well thing. One of the things that I've noticed with artesian well water is how alive it is. I'm just going to plug in our fundraiser for our artesian well drilling at the Shaman Shack in the Olympic Peninsula, where we also happen nearby to have a Lemurian portal.
Yes. And that did not escape me. Our artesian well, when we drill it, the overflow from the well, which it should continuously flow, is going to travel through the portal into the creek, and from the creek into the river, and from the river into the lake, and from the lake into the ocean, and from the ocean all the way to you, I guess, wherever you might be. And I think that's going to be instrumental in helping to activate that portal too.
Yes.
Because it was always something about the water, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to use the creek in the backyard to bring the power in, but that creek dried up.
Yes.
So it's not the right source.
Right.
Yeah. So what we're talking about, and we visited a spring like this on our drive back. I put in springs to go check out, and findaspring.com, I think it's called that. And the one that was closest to us was right after we went to a psychic fair.
Yes.
It was so cool. That day was one of those days. You know how some days are like magic?
Yes, it was a Larry day, I think.
It was a Larry day,
yes.
One of the magic Larry days.
Yes.
And I read about them on Talk With Me Now every now and then. People are sharing their experiences of days like these, where one thing leads to another. There's a series of synchronicities, and they're all meaningful and excellent. And ours started with pasties.
It started with pasties the previous day.
Pasties in a parking. Oh, that was the same day.
No, that we wanted pasties the previous day, and we even downloaded recipes because we couldn't find a proper pasty in California.
If you don't know what a pasty is, just Google it. It's a meat pie.
It's a meat pie from
Cornwall.
Cornwall, yes, a Cornish pasty.
Cornish pasty. That's what we were after. We ended up at a Filipino place getting empanadas
which
that were labeled as
empanadas.
Pasties.
Yes.
But they were
labeled empanada pasty, but they were not.
More like a lumpia with the wrong crust.
They were completely different. But anyways,
it was tasty, but it wasn't,
we downloaded the recipes and everything. We were totally prepared to come home. When we got home, we were going to make some pasties. Yes. And then we found out one of our friends, Veronica, she was giving readings at a fair nearby, one of our nearbys, which is like an hour off of our trip.
That's on the way.
On the way.
You get an hour over there, which turned into about 6 hours.
Oh my God, we're going to have to go and see her. So we did.
Yeah.
And the car park at the hotel where the fair was, there was no parking spots.
Not only was there no car spots, I said, I would like the best parking spot.
Yes. So we did
thank you.
So we did the best parking spot exercise. And I was really surprised. It's like, that's odd.
Boy, Larry,
Like,
you're
it's
usually pretty good
strange.
at that. Even
Yeah,
my
I
best
said-
parking spot is usually, even it's okay if it's in the
Yeah,
shade and the furthest
yeah.
away because I like to walk sometimes.
And it's like so strange.
Well,
It should have worked. I said, I don't understand what's going on here. So we exited the hotel car parking area, and you spotted a pasty store. And you said, oh my gosh, you said, we're going to be going there after the fair.
Yes, definitely.
And then
real pasties, Cornish.
Yes.
They even advertised Cornish pasties.
pasties. That's all they did in the store. Just pasties.
Just Cornish pasties.
And
And
then you
we're
said,
looking at it. I was like,
wait.
looks like that's an open spot right next to that pasty store.
yeah.
The only parking spot they have.
Yeah.
One spot. It's like, okay, well, that'll
Actually,
be
they
one
have
spot.
two, but one of them was in the shade, which is nice. There was one right next to it in front of the door also, I noticed. Because
Oh,
another
I
guy
didn't
was
see that
parked
one.
there when we left. So we
Anyway.
parked there.
Pulled in.
Pulled in.
Parked there. Ordered about 6 pasties.
No, we went in and we said, hey, we're going to get some pasty. But he said, okay, if we leave our truck here while we go to the fair, the psychic fair across the streets. And he said, sure, you can stay there as long as you want. He was so nice.
Nice and steady.
Yeah. And then we started buying pasties, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And then he said, it's okay, like, we'll get some pasties ready for you and we'll put them in a box so when you come back.
And in the fridge so you can
In the
bring them
fridge, yeah.
Because we're like, can we have them frozen?
Frozen?
We
Yeah.
need to bring 12 home. And
Yeah.
well, we went from there to the fair, the psychic fair, which was
Yes.
chock-a-block full of the coolest things in the universe, of course.
Yes.
All the crystals were half off.
And there was tons of readings. Of course, our friend was there, so we had a
And our
really
friend was
nice
doing-
visit.
Yeah. You even got a
Super
reading.
nice visit, yeah. Well, she was working, so I'm going to visit with her. I'm going to get a reading, right?
Absolutely. And you paid.
I totally paid her, yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we...
Got a foot ionizer bath
yes,
machine.
Yeah.
You put a thing around your wrist and you stick your feet in a nice, warm, salty bath water.
Yeah.
And it has some kind of bubbler thing in it or a zizzler. And then
It gets rid of the
it gets rid of
toxins
the
in your blood.
spikes. Yeah.
And the spikes, all the things.
All the things come
So, yeah, we got ones for our
shaman check.
shaman shack here for, like, you know,
Give it
for
give
other
it a go.
people can use it. And we're going to charge because that's going to be part of the fundraiser for the well.
Yep.
And
so if you want
also,
to get your feet ionized,
come over to the shaman
your
shack.
blood ionized. I don't know. We'll figure it out what it's called.
I don't know what it's called, but it's really cool.
But it worked good.
It really worked. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
I totally agree.
Yeah, after all of that, as we're in the walk back to the truck to pick up our pasties. Actually, when we were getting our feet done in that bath, we're sitting in there in the fair. This old minor 49er walks by with a big old scraggly beard and a giant hat, you know?
Yes.
He's like, minor 49er. I said, yeah, you should try it. Sit down. He's like,
I don't need it.
Giving
he
us
said.
apples. Says, I don't need it. I've been drinking Bitsby Springs. Or he actually said
Tactician.
Brittany Springs water.
Yeah.
Brittany Springs water
My
for the
entire life.
my whole life. I don't need none of that. I don't have
I'm
any
like, ding,
toxins
ding,
in my
ding, ding,
body.
what?
It's like
Artesian well.
Brittany Springs. Ding 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 ding.
That was fun.
So it's actually Brittany Springs.
Brittany. Yes, not Brittany.
And when I springed it, it was just 5 minutes down the road from where we were.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got there,
It was full.
it was full of
coming and
people, and there was
Yeah.
a pull-out parking lot. I
Yeah.
was
People
pulled
coming
out. There were even people selling lemonade made with Brittany Spring
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
We pulled in, and it was a non-stop stream of cars.
Yeah.
And tons of water getting
With their-
filled.
yeah,
Big
with their
jugs,
big
little jugs,
jug,
gallon
little
jugs. Just water
bottles,
bottles.
All the things.
There were 3 spigots coming out,
Yes.
different rates.
Yeah.
A whole family. I met a football star, NFL football star. He and I
Mhm.
talked for 20 minutes about.
Yes.
He was loving his sharing.
He
you know.
was, yeah.
And he had
He was.
all of his waters, plus his friends'.
He
And
had
his friends'.
3 or 4 or 5 big boxes full of plastic bottles of all sorts of sizes. So he kept coming in, filling them, and
Made
then
the run
another
for the whole
one.
family and all my friends.
Yes.
It was great. But you could see how that watering place, which had been in existence and functioning now for 100 years better, was a meeting point and sharing point.
The other part that was really interesting is that in the fair, Larry bought me a really massive crystal. And why did you?
Crystal ball, yeah.
roll your eyes.
I wasn't going to buy you a crystal ball or go shopping for crystal balls, but invariably, as I walked
happens,
through, I
yeah.
ran across crystals. Then when I checked each and all of the crystals, there was sleepy ones, sleepy ones, sleepy ones, sleepy ones, sleepy ones. Then there was this one, and it was
Nice.
nice.
Yeah.
And he said it's normally $800, but it's half off today, $400. I'm like, Jesus, as big as our $2,000 one.
Yes.
It's giant. I'm like, all right, well, that's really freaking excellent.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It only matters is this a good one or not? So I pulled it up and I took a picture inside as it was,
Yeah.
and right inside, right away, there was a swirled up. I don't know. It looks kind of like it looked like a swan or a serpent, but there was a image in there that was exact replica of another crystal that he had just down the pile from it.
Mhm.
In other words, it's an excellent crystal for crystal photography.
So Larry
So I was
put
like,
this crystal.
Oh yes, I got this giant crystal.
Yeah, and so he put it in this partition well under one of the taps, right?
Yeah, like it was filling it up with water.
Yeah, and people would walk past and look at it like nothing weird about this. A giant crystal ball under the thing, using up the water like space because nobody could fill up their water on that space.
Not on top of our
crystal. And it's your now.
Our.
I knew that was gonna happen. That's why I said Larry bought me a crystal because it's like my crystal.
I like to say I bought us a crystal.
But it's suddenly Larry's photography crystal.
It's our crystal.
And nobody
batted an eye. Oh, you're filling up your crystal ball? It's like, well, I'm washing it. I'm cleaning it. I'm clearing it. I'm connecting it to the spring. It's like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I can imagine people coming over to the shaman shack, filling up their bottles of water from. Some of them had traveled a long ways to get it there, right? A couple of hours.
Yeah, a couple hours drive, and they've been doing it for 5+ years.
Yes.
10 years in some cases, like that Niner 49er's entire life.
Yeah, and some people just lived down the street. So it was like from everywhere. And they knew the history of the place and all the things. So that really is interesting to me,
Right. There was a roof. The roof was built by the Boy Scouts or the Lions Club had a fundraiser because the old roof had started to fall in. So they made a new one. And the spigots and things that had gotten redone over the years. And putting the whole thing in place was all a project like we're doing. It's a project that took many, many hands. And because, I think in part because of the many, many hands involved, it's a community appreciated community thing, right? We did go to another spring that was quite a bit less.
Yes. We were the only people there, and it didn't look like many people had come over. And it was one guy doing everything. One guy doing
it for everyone. It's my land, it's private land.
Yeah.
He made water available to his neighbors' horses.
Yes.
Right? Because the county said you can't do it without put chlorine in it, etc. All these things. They put up a giant sign, do not drink this water, it's poison, it hasn't been treated, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so it was like, it had a whole complete different energy than the Bitsby spring. Right? And in part, probably connected to the connective function of the Bitsby one. It's a community spring, right?
Yeah.
And the other one was a guy's that he was willing to share with people.
Right.
Right. And so I think that in the case of the Shaman Shack fundraiser, it's us all who are listening. Yeah. We are all going to make this spring together. And it'll be a community high frequency spring, sharing high frequency water to people and to fishes.
Yes.
And to plants along the way.
Baby salmon.
Baby salmon.
Anyways, how does that relate to our Lemuria, right?
Well, the water goes through the Lemurian portal we have. There's some of that water.
If you're watching the video, you can see me drinking some of that amazing water. This is different. What did you do to this water?
I put it in the swirler.
It is amazing.
Good.
It's really amazing. It's almost like food. It feels like food.
That's excellent.
Really amazing. Very nice.
Well, I'll bring some and share it with our expert panel. Oh, were you going to say how this relates to Lemuria?
The difference between the water that we get from our faucet or taps and that energy, that feeling we get from this water that I just drank, the artesian water, the one that's alive, that's how it feels to me. That's the difference between Lemuria, what we call Lemuria. They don't call themselves Lemurians or Lemuria. And what we're living right now in present modern society. That's the difference between that energy of scruffy and not scruffy energy that we felt, or I felt, through Shasta. You see? It's like that liveness. We have access to this liveness. And it's been there all the time, but we just didn't see it somehow. And now we see it. Like the difference, now we see it. Know your water, babe.
Know your water. Okay, then. What I was going to say is we'll bring some of this Britney Springs was how I try to remember Britney Spears water. How am I going to remember the name of this? Oh, yeah. Britney Spears. That'll work. Britney Springs. And then it was Britney Springs. Okay. Yes. Got it. Because I didn't want to forget. You know how I can forget sometimes.
Yeah. Britney Springs water.
Britney Springs.
We'll bring it to the panelists and see what they think.
And see what they think. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that second hour.
That's in the second hour. If you don't know where to get that,
go to Inelia.substack.com.
Yep. Go
You're
look at our
links
newsletter.
there,
everywhere.
All the links are everywhere.
So we'll go for about an hour or two, sometimes longer, sometimes less. And we'll talk to our expert panel about what we've just been talking about. And they are experts in all kinds of fields. There's engineering, corporate, there's
education,
PhD doctors, education, all this. So
psychic,
architect,
all the things.
All the things. So,
all right, see you then.
Check it out.
Love you, Dolly.
Love you. The only things that I remember, specifically is the loud crack.
Yes.
It sounded like a giant boulder fell out of the sky and landed right on the ground right next to you. Yeah. Or lightning went at the same time as the giant boulder fell down. I was sure there was going to be screaming because this giant boulder cracked down.
So loud, yeah.
But it was, nobody cared. Nobody even looked.
Oh, yeah. There was an older couple that was just about to enter the portal when that happened. And they did stop and looked around and kind of a little bit scared, like.
Oh, that's right. I remember them too.
Yeah.